Hello, everyone. This is Suzanne at The Gospel Truth, Missing in Action, right? Oh, my goodness. It hit this past 2 weeks. I ended up every day almost having to go out, do a bunch of errands, get things ready for Ron's surgery, make sure all of our things are in. And then I usually, about 5 o'clock, I fix us our dinner, and usually right after dinner around 6. Sometimes I can stay up a little longer, depending on my pain levels. Sometimes I just go in the bedroom, close down the lights, and just try to relax my body because my pain levels escalate at night. And I usually toss and turn all night. The pain's so bad. And like today, I didn't get up till, I think, 1:30. And the day's half gone, and I've got things to do, and I try to get everything in, but sadly, sometimes it just doesn't work that way. So instead of kicking myself all the time and feeling kind of guilty and all these things that we do to ourselves, I'm not going there, because it is what it is, and I have to learn to deal with it, as maybe you have to learn to deal with your issues that are going on in your life. And we are going to do our Angels, Demons, and You, and I'm really going to press hard to get this book finished by Sunday. Because Monday, I'm having my procedure on my knee. Ron's having his shoulder surgery. But come what may, by the end of next week, Friday, we will finish this book. We only have like 3 or 4 chapters to go. So we're not going to mess around. I thank you again deeply from my heart for your patience and for praying for me. Please keep those prayers going up that our procedures go well. And like I said, I have to get up at 6 o'clock. Well, I have to be there at 6, so we're going to have to get up around maybe 4:45. So, yeah, it's going to be a rough morning. But you know what? We'll deal with it when Monday comes, right? Okay. All right. Right on to chapter 16. Angels, Demons, and You, Unseen Spiritual Influences in Our Lives. And I believe that Satan will try to defer us away from things. Anything he can do to draw us away from Jesus. To start having pity parties and, I don't feel good or whatever. And sometimes if you just get up and do, before you know it, you're done. And I've been doing a lot of get up and do lately, so, yeah. All right, enough of that. I love each and every one of you. I know you've been praying for us, and I know each one of us has our own road to travel, and may your path be guided by the Lord. All right, Suzanne, enough yik-yak. Let's get to the chapter. All right, take a drink of water here. I wake up at night with a sore throat because we have the air conditioning running and the fans running. So, you sleep with your mouth open. In the morning, I sound like I have a frog in my throat sometimes. It's really bad. But no froggy right now. All right, chapter 16, Understanding the Unseen. Make sure we're in the right chapter here. Yeah, chapter 16. Okay, yep, we are in chapter 16. It's been a bit, so I want to make sure I'm doing the right chapter here. Yep, chapter 16. Understanding the Unseen. It's hard to believe in something you can't see, isn't it? Unless there's historical documentation to the unseen that we can believe that it's real. We never saw Jesus walk the earth. We never saw him do miracles. Why do we believe? Why do you believe in God? Why do you believe in Jesus? And I think that's very important, because we have to come to know the unseen to come up against it and the evil forces that are behind it. And we have to see the unseen forces of God. God is much more powerful than the devil. We so easily dismiss the unseen. Out of sight, out of mind, right? Imagining the forces primarily shaping our lives are the things in the material world. That is almost the exact opposite of what the Bible invites us to believe. And a lot of people don't want to swallow that bitter pill. It might change their lives, or they have a closed mind. Prior to our discovery of microscopic organisms, most of life was blamed on spiritual things. We see this in Greek and Roman mythology. Then, during the Enlightenment, or the Age of Reason in the 17th and 18th centuries in Europe, reason was elevated above almost all other aspects of our person. That's when spiritual influences, for the most part, were dismissed. They were considered to be outdated, and that type of thinking has continued into our technological age. After all, now we have scientific investigation and rational diagnosis. A lot of those scientific investigations are whale-based, aren't they? Both of these extremes, that everything is spiritual, or there is no spiritual and everything is material, leaves us with an incomplete understanding. I am very grateful for science and the scientific method. I am probably most comfortable in that world. But I also believe in the spiritual realities that influence our lives. But I also believe in the spiritual realities that influence our lives. The Wizard of Oz presented a very fierce and intimidating scenario until Dorothy's dog, Toto, pulled back the curtain. Once you saw what was behind that curtain, the situation became less frightening. In a similar way, spiritual things are often fierce and intimidating until we gain the insight to understand them. Books like this can help us explore those spiritual things. Instead of spending our lives looking away from them, we can benefit from the revelation and insight that God offers us. Excuse me. Every dark and evil character created by the authors of Hollywood is only the devil's shadow. Every dark and evil character created by authors or Hollywood is only the devil's shadow. They are poor imitations of reality. There is no battle scene from The Lord of the Rings that compares with the ferocity of the angelic conflict that's being waged in the earth today. Even the dreaded Borg of Star Trek are assimilated by the devil and his army of demons. The masses who were slaughtered by Hitler and Stalin represent only a fraction of the lives that have been destroyed by Satan. So, when we ignore the reality of Satan and refuse to acknowledge his role, influence, and power, we're abandoning humanity, our own lives, and our families to his destructive intent. Isn't that a truth spoken here? That's one thing I like about this book. He cuts to the chase, and he really brings to light what all these things we've been studying are truly about. You know, it amazes me, other people's wisdom. Some people, boy, they just got it. They know the Bible forward and backward. They can quote scripture left and right. But again, with that, if they're not living that life, that's a danger too. But there are men and women, throughout the Bible, we see men and women that have fought against evil, martyred, horrible deaths. Throughout our Bibles, men and women are urged to fight the enemy, to do battle, and to wage war. We have not been placed in some sort of spiritual amusement park and told just to have fun. I know we prefer to tell the story in that way, but a casual observation of our world would suggest otherwise. I think one thing that kind of shook me is a few years back when the gays, when Biden was in office and the gays were full force, and they were chanting a song, something like, "We're gay, we're queer, and we're coming for your kids." And that was like a huge wake-up call. Like, these people are serious. They want to tear your kids apart, take them down that dark path. And these are the things we need to be aware of. Newborn babies don't have any responsibility as citizens or members of a family system. They're hungry and they cry. They want to be fed. They're dirty and uncomfortable, and they cry. They want to be changed. That's their worldview. But if you've been a Christ follower for 40 years and you still cry when you're hungry or need to be changed, it's time to grow up. Abraham's nephew Lot learned this lesson on the evening the two angels told him to gather his family and get out of town, because God intended to destroy the city where he lived. God was the impetus behind the destruction of that city. I think we could say up to that point, Lot was self-absorbed, choosing where he wanted to live based on the economic opportunities he imagined it presented. Then God rocked his world with an angelic visit, and choosing to listen saved his family from the city's destruction. Moses was quite satisfied being a sheep herder until the angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flames of a burning bush, and he suddenly realized he was involved in a spiritual battle. The angel informed Moses he was being recruited to confront Pharaoh, securing the release of the Hebrew slaves. Gideon lacked spiritual wisdom. He understood himself, his family, and his tribe to be insignificant until the day of the angel of the Lord interrupted his life, sending him to battle the Midianites, the people who were plundering the whole nation of Israel. God said, "Go in the strength that you have." Gideon countered, "It's not enough." Then God told him, "Hush, move," and the Midianite army was destroyed. We need to stop telling God what we can't do. It's time to move. The stories could go on and on and on, but each of these persons fought in the power of God against forces empowered by Satan and his demons. We are the people fighting this battle in the 21st century. We're living in a time with conflict erupting all over the earth. It's a spiritual conflict, a war for our souls. The enemy wants to capture our affection and direct our paths. He seeks to destroy us and our families. When you compromise and choose ungodliness and immorality, giving in to your carnal nature and those works of the flesh, you gave a foothold to a spirit that intends to destroy you. He is a deceiver. He promised you pleasure and satisfaction, but his intent is your destruction. Now, I understand some of you reading this think I'm using some very melodramatic language, and that I may be trying to frighten you into some type of fanatical faith. Let me be perfectly clear. I have no intent of frightening you. That's not my goal. Recognizing spiritual conflict is not the realm of fanatics, unless you perceive Jesus and his disciples to be fanatics. So let's take a few minutes and try to gain some more understanding about the unseen world. This is very important stuff. Very important. God's invisible qualities. Romans chapter 1 verse 20 says, "For since the creation of the world, God's invisible qualities, his eternal power and divine nature have been clearly seen, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse." Having been sincerely clean, being understood from what has been made, so that people are without excuse. So since the beginning of time, God started showing us his powers. Creation of the world, that was phenomenal. That was like huge. God has qualities that are invisible to us. Just because we can't see those qualities doesn't mean they don't exist. You and I interact with our world through 5 senses, but those 5 senses do not define reality. Our senses have limits. Dogs have a more acute sense of hearing than humans. Other animals have visual abilities that we don't have. You've heard about an eagle eye. It's rational, logical conclusion to realize our 5 senses should not defy reality. If they did, there would be no such thing as a virus, because you can't see it with your eyes. But if you can't see the virus So physically, you can see the impact of it and its influence. Man, when I got the COVID, I became a believer. You always hear about other people getting stuff, but then when you get it, it changes the whole perspective. In a similar way, the Bible tells us God has qualities that are invisible to our physical senses. God's creation serves as a canvas, giving us insight into God's eternal power and his divine nature. Creation makes God accessible to us in a way that we can perceive and understand him with our senses to such an extent that if you see and experience creation and still deny God, you are without excuse. Romans 1:20. The Bible opens by presenting God to us as the Creator. We're perverse when we refuse to acknowledge him as Creator or say the world around us just happened, even though that's an illogical conclusion. It's far more probable that this book just happened to come together. Trees toppled in the woods, rain fell and broke the wood down, the cellulose reassembled itself into thin sheets. There were all sorts of leaves and creatures in the woods with different colors, and when they died, the pigment from the leaves and from their bodies leached together through the soil and found its way to those sheets of cellulose that had formed from the decaying trees and arranged themselves on a page in an orderly fashion for you to read. If you believe that, wow. It's like, really? Like, yeah. No, God's the creator of all these things, and to believe all this had to happen for that sheet of paper as no. If you think I'm being too dramatic, that's what current theories preach. Why is it that a lot of people think Christians are being so dramatic about this Jesus and his apostles, and he did this and he did that? I'm not buying into that. As Christians, we need to be dramatic. We need to express our faith, our hope, that get the word out, that Jesus came to seek and save the lost. He died for us on the cross. It was all real. It was all documented. But yet people can have that facts right in front of their face, and they're like this. No peripheral vision, look straight ahead, and it goes right on by them. If you think I'm being too dramatic, that's what current theories preach. Living organisms came out of the primordial ooze, and all the proteins happen to align themselves perfectly. It's much easier to believe this book happened than you just happened. There is a creator. How did he do it? I don't know. Was it a big bang, a little bang, lots of bang? I don't know. We don't have full disclosure on how creation happened. We operate on a need-to-know basis. If you don't like that reality, you can talk to the boss next time you see him. In the meantime, let's humble ourselves and take him at his word. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 3 says, by faith we understand that the universe was formed at God's command. It would be an interesting exercise to write down what you understand by faith. It's easy to tell me what you understand by study. What do you understand about English from all your years in school? What do you understand about mathematics? Those are all legitimate subjects. But I'm more interested in knowing what you understand by faith. How does your faith impact your life? How does it influence your values? How does it change your calendar? How does it affect your resources and how you manage them? By faith. Hebrews chapter 11, one of my favorite chapters. Verse 3 continues, so that what is seen was not made out of what was visible. This verse shows us that the material, physical world we see was given order and shaped from the spiritual world, a place we aren't currently able to perceive as well as we would like. One day we will. Here's the important thing to recognize. We don't lack the ability to sense what's going on in the spiritual world. We just haven't learned how to engage it more fully. It's like buying a subscription to a cable or streaming service. You pay a higher fee, you'll gain more access. Ouch, I just stubbed my toe. I know, I'm sitting down. I stub my toe when I sit down. I hit it on my shredder. Okay. If you pay a higher fee, you'll gain more access. In a similar way, if you invest in learning about spiritual things, you will gain abilities and insights beyond what you currently know. The Bible says that now we see as if we're looking through glass, darkly, as if the mirror is fogged over. But the day is coming when we will see clearly. It says we will know in part, but there's a day ahead of us when we'll know fully. Don't let your limited perception be the primary determiner for how you interact in the world. Begin to see the world from a God's perspective. To understand the scene, we must have to understand the unseen. Unholy spirits, unclean spirits, or demonic spirits, they're all synonymous terms, are prevalent throughout the story of Scripture. Earlier, we discussed how Jesus' ministry began with interaction with a demonized man in a synagogue. We see the same type of interactions happening all through the Gospels and into Acts when the church began. Okay, we're going to stop here because this again was a very long chapter, like chapter 15. But we're going to stop here. When we pick up later today, I might come back and pick it up tomorrow. Paul addresses an unclean spirit. Let's see what else subtitles are. We can overcome evil, adjust our forces, strengthen the inner man. Boy, don't we need to do that daily. Recognize what's temporary and what's eternal. Very important. The spiritual realm impacts the physical realm. Use your words for God. Proclamation of God's protection. Proclamation of hope and restoration. So you can see those are addresses the next segment, which can go on for 2 or 3 pages. So, all right, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Oh my goodness, the medicines I'm taking make my mouth so dry, and if you've ever had dry mouth, you know what I'm talking about. I wake up several times a night just taking a sip of water all night long. That seems to help. All right, Angels, Demons, and You. What a great study this is being. And once we get through this, I have a surprise for you after we get through this book. And it's going to help us strengthen those around us. And it's truly going to help us to love our neighbor. Have you ever thought about loving your neighbor and exactly what that means? Well, that will be a good thing to dive into at a much later date, yes. Say, Suzanne, you got to get through this book first. I know that. Oh, there's just so much I want to do. I wish my voice wasn't giving out on me. I would read on and on and on. But it's been 23 minutes. I think that's long enough. You all have a blessed day in the Lord. And again, thank you so much for your patience, your prayers, your praises. You know, everything right back to you 100-fold. Take care now. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.